You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 85.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
All right. Hello, friends, and welcome. Hey, Marshall, how are you this fine morning?
Hey, guys, I'm doing great.
Are you awake?
I am awake. It's a little early for me, but I'm good.
It's a little early. I'm in Minnesota, so I'm 2 hours ahead of Marshall, and I'm visiting my aunties and my cousin and her husband, and I just went for a run this morning around a really beautiful lake, and it's like in the middle of the city. It's just gorgeous, and there's trees everywhere, and they're all turning colors, and it was just stunning. So this will be another podcast where I'm all hyped up from caffeine and running.
That sounds wonderful, though.
Well, I wanted to talk today. We had a recent question in Sugar and Flour Buster Society. So that's my free Facebook group. And so if you want help and you want the podcast is one way to get help. And then the other way is to join the Facebook group, which is awesome. And when you join, I ask people, what's your biggest struggle? And many, many, many times they say belly fat. And so we've been getting a lot of those comments recently that, how do I get rid of the belly fat? It all seems to land there. And so I thought, okay, it's time to answer that question for people. So we get this question all the time. And so what people will say is, it doesn't matter what I do. The belly fat just won't go away. And they'll say they feel like they look pregnant. And even men have told me that they feel like they look pregnant. So it's just very, very difficult. Women who've never had a problem with their weight their entire lives will hit 35 or 40, or maybe it's during menopause, and suddenly there's belly fat there. It just seems like it's so stubborn and it won't go away. So I thought it would be a good thing to talk about.
I have a really sad story about this. I just remembered it. So about 3 years ago, well, actually it was before I started working for you. I was working, in a different field of medicine. And that's when I was like at my heaviest. I was in a really dark place. I was overeating, over drinking, going through a lot of deaths in our family, my husband and mine. And I was just severely overweight and very, very depressed about that. And one day I was at work and I was helping with a procedure at work. And this guy asked me how far along I was.
Oh.
And I was not pregnant.
Yeah.
And it hit me in a way that just really hurt, And I'm not sure if anybody else has ever had that happen to him. But I was just really offended. And then, I looked in the mirror and he was right, though. I was just collecting all this belly fat, and I looked like I was pregnant. And it just, that just hit me in a way that that really hurt deep. And so I'm really glad we're talking about this, because I don't know how many people deal with this issue, but it's something we need to talk about.
Well, a lot of people have that happen to them, and I actually had my little nephews when they were little asked me, when's the baby coming? And it's like, and Connie, my sister, and I just kind of looked at each other and said, huh? And then I looked down, I was like, oh yeah, I could kind of see how they might think that,
So, he felt horrible too, because he just really was just being sincere. Mm-hmm. And, and just inquiring about, like when my baby was due.
Yeah.
I just, like I said, it just hit me in a way that I've never forgotten it. And, and I don't know if anybody else has ever, been asked that question, but, but it hurts. Yeah.
It does. It does. So I want to talk about what's going on with particularly that particular kind of fat. So think about it like this. Right underneath the skin, between the skin and the abdominal muscles, there's fat there, and that's called subcutaneous fat. That fat is soft and squishy, and it's just like all the other subcutaneous fat that's underneath your skin all over your body. And that fat is actually not dangerous. It's just annoying. And it does have a tendency to build up more in women, particularly with the changes that occur with menopause. We just seem to carry more subcutaneous fat normally as we age. And I've heard this type of belly fat called the menopot in some circles. Have you ever heard that? The menopot?
Yeah, I was just going to say mine just collects right down at the very bottom of my belly.
Yeah.
And and that's always been a problem for me.
Mm-hmm.
I fight it at the gym. I try to, eat and it's been a problem.
Yeah. Well, this fat you can't really spot reduce unless you have liposuction, or we have a fabulous machine in our clinic called Sculpture, which will heat treat it basically. But you can't get rid of it by doing sit-ups, although you can definitely tone the muscles underneath it and make it seem a little bit smoother, but it's not something that you can spot reduce. And people are always wanting to spot reduce the belly fat. So what I want to talk to you about is the other kind of belly fat, and that's visceral belly fat, because that you can sort of kind of spot reduce. That's fat that's inside the abdominal wall, so you can't really get at it. It's around the organs, and it itself becomes an organ because it's producing all kinds of hormones on its own. In the world of obesity medicine experts and endocrinologists, we call this sick fat. So think about it as sick fat because it's producing hormones. And the medical term for sick fat is actually called, and I'm not sure I can ever say it correctly, adiposopathy. Say that one three times fast.
Yeah,
adiposopathy.
That's quite a word.
Yeah. Well, it comes from the word adipose, which is fat, and pathology, which means disease. So adiposopathy means sick fat, basically, or diseased fat. Okay?
Yeah, it makes sense.
Yeah. So you learned something new on this podcast today, adiposopathy. So we've discovered that this fat is really interesting because it's creating all kinds of different toxic hormones, and these hormones create chronic inflammation. There are a lot of different kinds of hormones. So the hormones that create chronic inflammation, the hormones that make your blood clot more quickly, hormones that constrict your artery walls and create hypertension, hormones that mess up the metabolism of your thyroid, hormones that increase your estrogen, hormones that increase testosterone. I mean, I can go on and on and on. And these hormones all have long names and have been very well studied.
Oh, that's the bad stuff. That's the stuff that people ask me if I'm pregnant over. That's the stuff that, the hard belly fat that sticks out that is so gross. Yeah.
It's very hard to the touch. And, oftentimes it is hidden underneath the squishy fat. So in the world of obesity medicine and endocrinology, we understand very well that visceral fat is like a ticking time bomb in our bodies. It's setting us up for diabetes, heart disease, stroke, cancer, liver disease, and a host of other medical problems that create disease and will eventually kill us. So, Marshall, have I done enough to scare the living daylights out of you about visceral fat?
Yeah, that's some nasty stuff.
It's nasty. Well, there's something else you should know about visceral fat. And I just learned this a few years ago, and it's even scarier. So visceral fat comes from very specific stem cells. As we're growing in the womb, we have what's called stem cells, and they each sort of differentiate into all the different cells of our body. So the stem cells that create visceral fat, they've discovered, also create what's called epicardial fat. And epicardial fat is fat that is around the heart. So people who have a lot of visceral fat are also having a lot of epicardial fat. And so I want you to imagine that all of those hormones that are being created in the belly fat are also being created right around the heart. And so the heart is being bathed with all of those toxic hormones. Does that make sense?
Yeah, this is some scary shit.
It's really scary.
Talking about it makes, it just brings it all to light because,
Yeah.
mostly I just think about this kind of fat as the kind of fat that keeps me from being able to bend over and tie my shoes.
Right. Yeah. There's more to it than that.
Yeah.
And so if you can imagine all of these hormones, right around the heart, is it any wonder that heart disease is the number one killer of men, of women, of people of most racial and ethnic groups in the United States? Like in 2020, you heard about all the people that died from COVID. We had 697,000 people in the United States die from heart disease in 2020. That's about 1 in 5 deaths. So this is killing us, seriously. So what I want all of us to understand is that belly fat is not a cosmetic issue. Obesity is a disease. And in most cases at this time in the Western world, a lot of the belly fat that we struggle with is visceral fat. And visceral fat is essentially killing us from the inside out.
I was going to say, we have a plastic surgeon that works across the hallway.
Yes.
And he so often walks patients over to us at our clinic because they come in for a tummy tuck. And they have all this visceral fat that they need to get rid of. And he walks them right over to our clinic because he cannot do anything about it with surgery or with lipo or with any of that. I mean, these patients, poor patients, that they go in just desperate and willing to spend all this money,
for
trying
surgery.
for surgery. And like I said, he walks them right over to our clinic and he just explains to them, there's nothing I can do about this. So, so it's just a real pain in the ass, this kind of belly fat. Ick.
Yeah. So this is what people that are embarking on a weight loss journey don't understand at all. They think they've got a character flaw. They think they just need to go on a diet. They have no understanding of the toxic biochemistry that's going on in their bodies. And they have no idea why they feel so tired and bloated and why they ache so much and why they feel like they're just struggling to get through their days. And they have no idea that they're suffering from this disease called obesity. And they just go and join Weight Watchers or start an Optavia diet. That's the latest fad. Or they do a keto diet for a while to try to lose weight. And it's just so much insanity, or they go to the plastic surgeon and say, do a liposuction.
Yeah, they're desperate. I mean, once we get to that point, and then all the inflammation, gosh, it just causes so much, so much aching, and it causes that. I don't know if I don't think that you've ever had to deal with this. I'm not really sure, but I know when my visceral fat level is high, every morning when I wake up, it's like I'm stiff. I feel like a 90-year-old woman. Like my bones ache and my muscles ache and my joints ache, and I know what that is. And I mean, I didn't used to know, but I know now. And I know that it comes from this visceral fat level, that it causes all these problems.
Yes, exactly.
So I wanted to ask you, so what causes us to gain visceral fat?
Wow. I'm so glad you asked that question. Well, the biggest reason why people develop visceral fat is because their insulin levels have been running too high. Now, remember how I talked about the pancreas last week? Do you remember all of that? And I talked about the beta cells of the pancreas that have been working overtime, producing so much insulin.
Right.
All that insulin creates visceral fat, that belly fat, and it gets worse over time. So we're eating processed foods and drinking sugary beverages that are really stressing out our pancreases, causing them to have to produce way too much insulin, right? And it kills me to see this happening. So I told you I'm in Minnesota, right? Well, I was thinking about this podcast in the airport on my way here. And right in the boarding area, I noticed a kid. He was maybe 10 or 12 years old. And he was eating a great big pepperoni pizza and a bag of Doritos. It made me sick to think about all that insulin that this poor kid's pancreas was going to have to produce in order to metabolize the pizza and the Doritos.
Well, I mean, that's
And
not uncommon. And then you think
not
about
at
like the
all.
big soda, the big old giant sodas that, like all these fast food, the sodas have just gotten bigger and bigger and
Mm-hmm.
bigger. Like the
Yeah.
7-Eleven, like that, the big gulp.
Yeah.
And so I just can't even believe my pancreas. I mean, I think about, what I used to drink, all the soda I used to drink. I can't even believe my pancreas is still, still working.
Right.
I mean,
Exactly.
yeah.
I think they're very resilient organs. I'm amazed. On the plane, there was this cute little kid sitting next to me. He might have been like 5 or 6 years old. He was so well behaved. Our plane was a little bit late departing, and he just was a great little guy. And they came through asking for what beverages do you want, and he ordered a Sprite. And I was just like, oh my God, this poor little kid, his pancreas is going to have to produce so much insulin just to metabolize all the sugar in the Sprite for that little kid. And I just, I'm just thinking, oh,
I would have been thinking I would have been pissed at the parents because that kid's going to be bouncing out of the seats
oh
for
no,
most of the plane ride.
he actually didn't. It was pretty
Really?
amazing. He wasn't bouncing out of the seats. So yeah,
Oh my goodness.
I know. So what I want all of us to understand is that, Pizza Hut and Frito-Lay and PepsiCo and all of these food companies get to make a lot of money while these kids and us as a society get to suffer the consequences. So just imagine all of that insulin and all of that epicardial fat and that belly fat that is being created from all of that insulin. Even at these little kids' ages, they're developing visceral fat, whether you can actually see it or not. And they grow up to be sitting ducks for heart disease and cancer and arthritis and diabetes and hypertension and a whole host of other diseases, not to mention the burden of having to carry around all the extra weight. So that's what's happening. All day, every day, we as a society are struggling with the consequences of the crap food that the food industry is selling us.
Well, our brains are so vulnerable because, we will choose a dopamine hit over our health. And that's what we do all the time with eating these foods. It's these feel good foods.
Right.
And we just want to feel good. And so, even though this stuff is killing us, like I said, our brains are so vulnerable to it that, we just have to be aware of what is going on. And
I think awareness is huge. I think that awareness makes it a little bit easier to make the right choices, but I also think that there's a lot more to it as well, So we're just like, really, really, as a society, we're just living lives in which most of us are pretty sick and debilitated most of the time. And we have terrible cravings, and we're wondering why we can't get rid of the belly fat. And we're going on all these crazy restrictive diets that make no sense and that just make us hungrier. And we never realize that the problem is not with us. The problem is with the food industry for producing this crap that's so freaking addictive and that sends our pancreases screaming into the woods from overwork, right?
Right.
I get really angry sometimes when I think about what's going on in this country and how we're exporting all of our American food all over the world. And so now all of these other countries are suffering the consequences as well. So it's just hard. And so,
yeah, and this is Dr. Angela's. If you guys don't know this is Dr. Angela's passion, is to bring awareness to people and, and just bring down, the food industry and bust them out. Yeah. And, bring to light what people haven't known for so long because, it's killing our society. So, we're so fortunate to have somebody like you that, that's putting this out there for free, just because you care about people. I think that's just wonderful. And just thank you for that.
Oh, yeah. I think if people understood what the food industry is doing, I ask all of our patients to watch a documentary called Fed Up. If you haven't watched that documentary, you need to watch that documentary. For those of you who are listening to this, it is incredible. Now, it was put out in 2014, so it's almost 10 years old now. But it really talks
still relevant
about how the food industry is affecting our children. And over the last 10 years, things have not gotten better. Things have just gotten worse. So, Anyway, I just want everybody to understand, if you're struggling with belly fat, what that means in most circumstances is you're struggling with insulin. Okay. And so if you want to get rid of belly fat, you have to lower your insulin levels. And in order to do that, you need to understand more of the science. And so what I'd encourage you to do is to go to journeybeyondweightloss.com/join and join the Done with Dieting Bootcamp, because that is where I teach you the science of all of this. And so then you will understand, how do I get my insulin levels down? How do I burn off this belly fat? How do I change my metabolism? And then I'm going to help you in the Empowered Weight Loss Program learn how to keep that weight off. The first month, the Done with Dieting Bootcamp, you can really change the way your body's metabolism is working and get it healthy again. But that's just the first month of the rest of your life. You've got a journey in front of you where you're going to need to learn a lot of skills. And so I would encourage you to just get started with us, because it's really the only way. You've got to stop dieting. You're going to want to really learn, how do you nourish your body well from the beginning, so that you're not constantly going on yet another diet and gaining it back and losing it and gaining it and losing it and going into that crazy cycle. So that would be my suggestion, is to go ahead and join the boot camp.
Yeah, I have not had or heard of one person, not even one single person, that has joined Journey Beyond Weight Loss or done the 30-day Done with Dieting Bootcamp that has called us or messaged us and said that they regretted it. Not a single person. It always, it always
They're all like, whoa.
It invokes more curiosity from people to get healthy, to stay healthy. And once you know this information, it's not like we're trying to get you dependent on our meals or, anything like that. This is information that's going to save your life. And once you understand what's going on in your body, you'll understand how to fix the issue.
Yeah. So the boot camp is where I send you a video every day for 30 days. And you're going to learn about visceral fat. You're going to learn how to get rid of it in much more detail. And then I also have weekly coaching calls where you can get your questions answered. And it's just so much fun to watch the light bulbs go off for people. It's just awesome. And the information I present is information that's not really put together in this understandable way anywhere else. So you'll have absolute clarity about what to do to get this disease of obesity under control. And if you follow what I teach you, you can really shift your metabolism and get it humming on a very healthy path in just 30 days. Okay. So that's what I would encourage you to do. So any other comments or questions, Marshall?
No, I think we covered it. I mean, just get involved in this and change your life.
Change your life for good. All right. So that's all for this week. Now, I do want to tell you, do not buy any Halloween candy because next week, I'm going to tell you what to do for the trick-or-treaters who may be coming to your home this year, okay? So don't buy the Halloween candy. They always market it way ahead of time, by the way, to get you to buy it, because they know that if you've got it around your house, you're going to eat it, and then you'll have to go buy more for the trick-or-treaters. So they do this. They do this on purpose. Just notice what's going on. So, all right, everyone. Take care and have a great week, and we'll see you next week. Bye now.
Bye, guys.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.